Beat It AT, what up? Beat It AT, what up? Beat It
What is going on, my brodies? It is Andrew Rapier here of Beat It AT Production and Publishing, bringing you guys a brand new YouTube video. Now, I originally made this video all from scratch, showing you guys how to make a Post Malone beat, but I forgot to record the computer's audio. So all I had was me talking, and I figured that wasn't that useful. So I am here again, but I am going to just break down the beat instead. I will do another video where I actually make the beat, make another beat from scratch, but you know, I apologize. I didn't expect that to happen. Now, before we get started, the samples that I use in this are predominantly from the AT producer placement pack. And what that pack is, it's a limited edition, limited time sample pack that features about 23 different melody compositions, including each one's stems. So those are like actual melody pieces, so that you can make up to 23 different beats with it. Probably more if you flip the samples differently. But it includes the stems, and so one of the samples, the melody sample that I have, is actually from that pack. It's called Forgotten, and it's actually a 130 BPM D minor one. But if you guys know Post Malone's music, a lot of Post Malone's music is between 90 to 105 BPM, or around like 150 to 165 BPM. And he often has like C major. C major is a big prominent scale system in his beats. He uses obviously a lot of other scales and melodies, but in his newest project, there's a lot of C major. And so what I did was I got the sample that we're using, and then I shifted the pitch and such from it. So it would be within the BPM range, so it's 150 and it's C major. And in order to do that, it was honestly a lot of trial and error. And I used this program called Key Finder. And right here, this C1 is actually the current one that I'm currently using. And so I'll play the original sample real quick. And then also for the drum samples, they're from the AT producer placement, or the placement pack, as well as the AT Soundkit 4. But here's the melody, the original one. And honestly, that could have been used for Post Malone, but I wanted to give you guys more insight, more information on how you can actually shift these samples into your own, or closer to something of your own. So I'm actually going to go ahead and play the beat start to finish, so you guys see what we're working with. And if you guys like it, you guys can stick around, and I'll go through every part of this beat and why I did what and how I did it. So I'm going to go ahead and play it all right now. So that's the beat that we will be breaking down. If you guys like it, then stick around as I'll go through everything and how I did it. If you guys didn't, well, I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys like the next videos. So that being said, let's go ahead and break it down. So this right here has all the samples that are in this melody composition. So I'm gonna turn off these. Once I did the pitch correction, which I set the mode to, well, what I first did was went to auto detect, and then under auto detect, I typed in 130 BPM because 130 is the BPM of that sample. And that's what you want to do here, because what it does is it stretches the sample to the project, but it needs to know the sample's BPM. So I told it was 130. And then I did E2 transient, so it didn't shift the pitch. And then what I did was I did trial and error by going into the pitch, and I found that 0.8 is what made it go to C major scale, or A minor, because A minor's relative is C major and C major's relative is A minor. So after I did that, I just did that to all the samples. So all of these were done just like that. So now when you listen to that original sample and listen to this one, it sounds a whole lot different than the original one, because instead of D minor, it's C major. So let's go through everything. As you guys can see, I labeled it intro, verse, chorus, verse 2, bridge, chorus 2, outro. This one right here, this master, that's the volume, so I'm fading out the volume for the outro. For the parts before the chorus, like the bridge, I did a reverb on the snare, as well as a parametric EQ. That's on the main snare. You can hear it right here. That like snare is like a whole lot wider and big. It's going in that room. More kind of like trying to simulate a rock type of feeling, and indicate there's a change in like the emotion or pace of that beat. I'm going through all these automation clips like right here verse, and then we're gonna work our way back up. And then right here in that chorus to that first part of the verse, I did a half speed on the guitar, and then I also cut out some of the low end, because when you do the half speed on the guitar, which you guys can see here, right there, when you half speed it, it's going to add more of that lower frequency, and I didn't want that to clash with the bass or the it doesn't actually have an 808 come in at any of those points, but I just didn't want it to clash with the bass. So in the intro, now let's work our way back, because that's pretty much all the EQs. I mean, all the automation clips are. It's just EQs, gross beat, reverb, and then master volume. And you guys can kind of see reverb, parametric EQ, gross beat, parametric EQ again. So in the intro, I wanted the bass line, this pad, and this guitar. So it has that more somber, sad feeling. Let me turn that off. And then when the verse came, I actually dropped the guitar all the way up to this part, which you could call is a bridge, but I'm gonna probably call it a let's just call it bridge. So it's an 8-bar first verse. So, and then I have just that bell pad going, and then I have these drums. And I had tuned this perky verb vibe. This is actually from the AT Sound Kit 4. It was actually tuned to a G flat. So I just went right here and tuned it to G flat, which is F sharp. And then so when I just placed it was at C, so then it, you know, it fits with the melody. Otherwise it would sound off. The 808 was already tuned. We'll get to the 808. That's from all these drum samples are from the AT Sound Kit 4 and the producer placement or the AT placement pack. I'll put the links to both those drum kits down in the description as well. The AT Sound Kit 4 is not a limited edition or limited time sample kit. The AT placement pack is. So you guys can get the AT Sound Kit 4 anytime. I suggest getting the AT placement pack as soon as possible because it won't be around much longer. 2 weeks, and there's only 20 units available. So that means once 20 people buy it or 2 weeks comes up, it's gone. And that's where we use the main melody samples as well that are used in this beat. They are from the AT placement pack. And so right here is the 808. Now what I used to figure out the 808 pattern was when I went into here, I recorded the guitar. So this is actually the current melody. So as you can see, there's a lot of E and C. So I just kept my 808 notes between E and C. So it was super simple. And I used the kick pattern to reference them. Which the kick pattern is not in, I think it's in this part. Yeah, right there. And then it goes, in that bridge part, it goes back and then has those reverbed snares. And I cut out that 808 because part of the reason why I always cut the 808 out in that bridge section is because when we come into that chorus, especially also the kick, is when we come back into that chorus, I want it to have that punch. Now, obviously, I could do the transition. I also did cut off a little that like one beat or like one bar, but all of that doesn't, whenever you omit a sound or cut it out, it adds tension. And so when that sound comes back, the perceived impact is a whole lot greater. So that's what the goal was, doing it right here. And then the drums chorus don't change, but in these drums verses are the same. They don't have the hi-hats. The drum verse has hi-hats. This part does not. On the bridge. So I also cut out the open hats from the Did I cut the? Yeah, I cut the open hats from the verses, so I kept the open hats only in the choruses. So if we go back to the chorus, it's really about cutting out sounds and keeping some sounds in. I also had more percussions going on in the chorus. So, in order to have that open hat end when the note is over, is I go to the envelope settings right here, and I adjust the ADSR settings. So I pulled the attack down, pulled the decay down, pulled the sustain down, kept the hold up. And I did the same thing for the 808 because that's what makes it not linger. And I didn't want those two sounds to linger. And then that riser was also from the AT placement pack. So in the mix, I have this reverb spread channel, which is really just a reverb with maxed out stereo, even ozone stereo imaging. It adds more room to it. It sounds fuller, but I didn't want to add all that to the actual channels because if I were to play mono, it would sound weird, or you would not hear those elements, because if everything's in stereo and then you put it all in mono, you don't hear it. And not to say that there's a lot of mono systems out there, but you know, it's just something to keep in mind. I don't want to alter the main sound. I'd rather have the main sound routed to a new channel that channel then works to add to everything. And it also saves CPU, because you could see I added the pad to it, I added the guitar to it. What else? Snare, and that percussion, that ding. So obviously, as well as even the effects. So my whole goal is, if I had to put the reverb and imager on every plugin, it's going to use up a lot more CPU. It's just going to be messy and it's going to be annoying. And this is just about saving time, and it still achieves the same goal that I'm going for. For the kick, I did a EQ 110 boost, 280 hertz boost, dip down on that high frequency because it's a little unnecessary. And then I did a sound goodizer. I love putting the sound goodizer on the kicks because it just adds that thump. There's other ways to add that thump, but I figure the sound goodizer is an easy and pretty successful way of doing that. So then what else? On the master, because that's pretty much, let me skim through everything real quick. EQ on the vocal part, which I have the vocal stuff only on the chorus, as well as the last bridge and outro. So I like to add stuff throughout the beat's progression. I want to make things interesting, keep the listener interested, and make sure the rapper understands the flow and the overall different sections. It just makes a beat better. It doesn't sound just like a generic loop beat, and actually sounds like a real composition. And then yeah, EQ, sound goodizer, in that snare part we have the reverb, which I told you is part of the automation clip, and I only have that going on in the bridges because it kind of does that rock thing where you know, I'm looking to create a big room, separate it from the verse section and going into the bridge part. I know that's kind of like how I said that was kind of cluttery or sounded like gibberish, but hopefully you guys can understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I have a couple cymbals that were going on, and then the 808 EQ, Camel Crusher. I love Camel Crusher. But you can see I'm doing very light amounts of distortion and compression. I just have that master volume all the way up. EQ on the riser because it was really harsh on the upper frequencies, and I could even probably dip it down a little bit more. Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. So here's a master EQ. Did like a slight bit sanguinizer on the master, just like a little saturating compression. And then here is my master chain. I have some imaging done, so it also fills out more. Then I got a little bit of a limiter going with the modern mode, and then crisp IRC3 with this much of a pull on the threshold. And that's pretty much it. I mean, so I think you guys let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this beat breakdown kind of gave you some insight on how to achieve a Post Malone type beat and how to get to that point. It's really focusing, obviously, Post uses a lot of guitars, ambient sounds. That's why the vocal chops were good and that water pad were a good pick. Otherwise, this could have been like a Gunna Lil Baby type beat with the guitar and how I could have directed the beat. But I was going for the C major 150 BPM range. I could have done the 100 BPM range, but it just didn't sound right because original sample is like 130. So knocking it up to like 150, speeding it up there sounds better than rather than slowing it down. And then yeah, the guitar ambient sounds, and I think the one thing I could say that could be probably adjusted is some of the drum sounds. But besides that, I mean, Post Malone has sang or rapped on more trappy based drum percussions before, so I'm not saying that this wouldn't be possible. This isn't what he would rap on, but what he would not rap on, but you know, it's within his pocket. I think what's the key is getting that melody and getting everything like that situated properly. So yeah, this is Andrew, Beat It AT. If you guys want to get these sample packs, go in the description down below. Be sure to act fast for that AT placement pack, because depending when you view this video, it may not be around anymore. So I'm hoping that you guys are able to check it out and get it. I'm going to do some more YouTube tutorials to catch up on the slack I've been doing, because I haven't been uploading as much as I would like to. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Let me know what you guys think about this.